Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking you somewhere, well, pretty idyllic. Think turquoise water, white sand, lush hills, luxury villas. We're talking about Phuket. And just to be clear up front, it's pronounced Phuket. Okay? Not Phuket.
Yep.
It's obviously a dream holiday spot, but it's also a really dynamic market for investors. So our mission today is to, navigate the complexities. We're going deep into land regulations, property titles, all that stuff you really need to know in a market like Phuket. Because, yeah, it's exciting, but you absolutely have to be informed.
Exactly. And guiding us through this is a fantastic source. It's an article called Tios Immobilier à Phuket. Guide, complete, basically real estate titles in Phuket, complete guide. What's really valuable here is where it comes from. It's from Ocean Worldwide. They're a luxury real estate agency, and they've been right there on the ground in Phuket since 2004.
Wow, since 2004. So they've seen a lot of changes, I bet.
Oh, absolutely. They really know their stuff. The director, Sandra O'Neill, for instance, she's personally helped literally thousands of families and investors figure this market out over the years. And their focus is very specific luxury residential real estate. Phuket, of course, and also Koh Samui. So we're getting insights from people who really specialize in that high-end segment.
Right, that kind of deep practical experience is exactly why this deep dive is so relevant for you listening. Understanding these, let's call them nitty-gritty legal details, it's not just for lawyers or big developers. It's really about empowering you, if you're considering investing, to make smart choices, spot the real opportunities, and just as importantly, avoid the traps in what is, let's face it, a booming market. Okay, so let's unpack this. Where do we start?
Well, the foundation for everything is Thailand's land code. Every single bit of land in Phuket falls under this code.
Good.
It dictates everything, who can own what, how land can be used, how it gets transferred. It basically sets up the different categories of land.
And these categories have different rights and, I guess, limitations attached.
Precisely. There are 4 main categories recognized. The first one, and the one people often want most, is freehold.
Right, like owning property outright in, say, the U.S. or U.K.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It grants the fullest ownership. You hold the land indefinitely, but, and this is the huge but for our listeners generally, foreigners cannot own freehold land in Thailand.
Ah, okay. That's the big one right there.
It really is. It's fundamental. Thailand controls its land quite tightly. But, interestingly, they've also created legal pathways to bring in foreign money. We'll get into those exceptions later.
Okay. So understanding that tension between control and attracting investment seems key.
Definitely. It shapes the whole market.
So if direct freehold ownership is mostly out for foreigners, what's the go-to option then, especially for like a villa or a condo?
The most common, and it's very practical, is leasehold. This lets you lease the land, usually for a maximum of 30 years initially.
Just 30 years. That doesn't sound super long-term for a major investment.
But the key is renewal. Typically, these leases come with an option to renew for another 30 years. And often, there's even a second 30-year renewal possible.
Oh, okay. So potentially up to 90 years.
Exactly. So it provides a pretty secure, long-term way for foreigners to control property, like villas and condos, without actually owning the land itself. It's very widely used.
That makes sense. Are the other categories important for individual investors? You mentioned 4.
The other 2, usufruct and superficies, are less common for, say, buying a single holiday villa. Usufruct is more about the right to use and benefit from property someone else owns. Superficies lets you own structures on someone else's land.
Sounds more commercial.
Generally, yes, they tend to be used for more complex setups, maybe commercial developments.
Yeah.
But it shows how the legal framework, despite that main restriction on foreigners owning land, has these specific tools to allow foreign involvement. It's quite strategic.
It really is. It's not just a flat no. Okay, so that clarifies the broad categories of land rights, but then you have the actual documents, the titles. You mentioned this is maybe even more critical.
Absolutely critical, because the title is your proof of rights. And in Phuket, there are different types with varying levels of security. This is where things get really interesting for an investor.
All right, lay it on us. What are these titles?
Okay, the top tier, the absolute best you can get, is called the Chanote title. Think of it as the gold standard.
Gold standard, okay. Why?
Because it represents full, clear ownership rights. It applies specifically to freehold land, and most importantly, it's registered officially with the government's land department. The boundaries have been accurately surveyed using modern GPS methods, and they're marked with official posts. It's the highest level of security.
So if you can somehow get freehold access via one of those exceptions, You'd want a Chanote title, ideally.
Absolutely. Below the Chinote, you have two others, Nor Sor and Nor Sor. Now, these are still recognized by the Land Department, their official titles,
But, I sense a but.
but they are considered less secure than a Chinote. They often relate to leasehold land or sometimes smaller plots. The surveying might be less precise or based on older aerial photos, not ground surveys.
Ah, okay. So maybe the boundaries aren't quite as definitively nailed down.
That can be the issue. And this leads to a really crucial piece of advice from the Ocean Worldwide Guide. They stress that land titles in Phuket, especially older ones or these Nor Sor types, might not always perfectly match the actual boundaries on the ground.
Wait, really? How does that happen?
Well, sometimes properties were developed, maybe fences put up, before the official, super accurate surveys and titling happen, so what the paper says and what's actually there might differ slightly.
Wow. Okay, that sounds like a recipe for potential problems down the line. Disputes with neighbors, maybe?
Exactly. Or issues with access, or finding out the buildable area isn't quite what you thought. This is why thorough due diligence isn't just a suggestion, it's absolutely vital. You cannot just take the title at face value. You need eyes on the ground and expert legal review.
That's a huge takeaway. So, even with official documents, the responsibility is really on the buyer to verify everything meticulously. You can't just assume.
You really can't, not in this market.
Okay, so we've got the land categories, we've got the hierarchy of titles, and the critical need for due diligence. Let's circle back to something you mentioned earlier, those exceptions. The general rule is no freehold for foreigners, but there are ways around it.
Yes, specific legal ways. The source outlines three main ones. First, there's the Investment Promotion Act.
Okay, how does that work?
Under this act, a foreigner can own up to 49% of the shares in a Thai company. And that Thai company can own freehold land, but there's a condition.
Always a condition.
Right. The company has to be involved in a specific promoted business activity, something the government wants to encourage. And it needs to get a foreign business license. So it's tied to a specific type of business investment.
Got it. Not just for holding land passively. What's the second one?
The second is often more appealing for bigger projects. It's through the Board of Investment, or BOI. They're the main agency trying to attract foreign investment. Under BOI promotion, foreigners can potentially own up to 100% of the shares in a Thai company that owns freehold land. Again, though, the business has to fall into certain promoted industries that the BOI designates.
So even more incentive, but still linked to specific industries the government wants to boost.
Correct. It's usually for larger scale things, projects that align with national economic strategy.
And the third exception.
The third is the Treaty of Amity. This is a specific treaty between Thailand and the United States. It basically allows American citizens and American companies to own land in Thailand, including freehold, under similar conditions as Thai citizens.
Oh, interesting. So that sounds quite direct for Americans.
It does, but the source actually notes that it's not widely used for real estate investments, maybe because of the paperwork involved, or perhaps the company structures offer more flexibility, especially if you have multiple investors who aren't all American.
Okay. So several pathways, but each with its own rules and requirements.
Exactly. And if you look at the big picture, these exceptions really show Thailand's strategy, right? They want foreign money, they want investment in key sectors, but they still keep ultimate control over the land itself through these structured channels. It's a balancing act.
It really is fascinating. Okay, so we've covered the what's and the how of ownership.
Yeah.
Let's shift to the where. Assuming you've navigated the legal side, where are the hot spots for investing, particularly in villas? The Ocean Worldwide Guide mentioned the Bang Tao area specifically.
Yes, Bang Tao is definitely highlighted as a prime area, and it's quite diverse itself. The guide breaks it down into a few key subregions. You've got Trungtale, for instance.
What's Trungtale like?
It's really popular with expats, retirees, people living there longer term. It's got a great mix of local Thai culture and food, but also international restaurants, shops, supermarkets. It feels very livable.
Okay, good blend. What else in Bang Tao?
Then there's Layam. Layam is generally quieter, more secluded. Think beautiful, peaceful beaches. It's known for having some stunning luxury villas, often tucked away, appealing more to those seeking privacy and, high-end tranquility.
Nice. And wasn't there a place nicknamed Millionaire's Row?
Ah, yes, that's Surin. That's pretty much the peak of luxury in Phuket. Some of the island's most exclusive, most expensive properties are found there. Incredible views, top-tier design. The name fits.
Wow. So across these areas, what's the investment potential looking like according to the source?
Well, Ocean Worldwide points to really strong potential in these villa markets. They talk about high rental yields. Phuket's tourism is strong, especially at the luxury end, so demand for rentals is consistent. And also significant potential for capital appreciation. Property values have generally trended upwards, driven by that tourism growth and ongoing development.
And it's not just about the beaches, right? There are bigger factors supporting this growth.
Definitely. Phuket's overall tourism industry is just huge and keeps expanding. Plus, there's constant investment in infrastructure. A key example is the expansion of Phuket International Airport.
Right, making it easier to get there.
Exactly. Better accessibility draws more tourists, which fuels rental demand, and it also makes it more attractive for investors themselves. It creates this positive cycle.
Makes sense. So wrapping things up then, what's the core message someone should take away from all this?
I think the main point is this. Investing in Phuket, especially in villas, can be really rewarding, potentially very lucrative, and it's a big good, but you absolutely must understand the local rules, the land regulations, the different property titles. Getting that right is crucial.
It's not something to jump into lightly.
Not at all. And that leads directly to the final vital piece of advice from the Ocean Worldwide Guide.
Which is?
Don't try to do it yourself. This isn't a DIY market, especially for foreigners. Before you make any decisions, before you sign anything, you absolutely need professional advice.
From who specifically?
Two key people. A reputable, experienced local real estate agent, someone like the team at Ocean Worldwide who live and breathe this market, and, just as importantly, a good lawyer who specializes in Thai property law.
Right. The agent finds the opportunities, the lawyer checks the legality and protects you.
Precisely. They're the ones who can really navigate the details, verify those titles properly, structure things correctly, and make sure your investment is as safe and sound as possible.
Okay, so know the rules, do your homework, and get expert help. Seems like solid advice for any complex market, but especially here.
Definitely. So thinking about all these complexities,
Right.
the different titles, the need for verification, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How might new technologies change things?
Like what?
Well, things like digital land registries, maybe even blockchain. Could they potentially streamline things, improve the security and transparency of property ownership in places like Phuket down the line?
That's interesting.
Yeah, could technology eventually make some of this easier? Or would it just raise new questions for investors about, trust and how these systems actually work in practice? Something to think about for the future.
Absolutely. A great thought to end on. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Phuket real estate.
Yeah.
We really hope this has given you some valuable insights, whether you're just dreaming or actively planning an investment. Until next time on the deep dive, keep exploring, keep questioning, and stay informed.